My name is Emily Ray. I'm 26 years old, and this is my real story, the kind of story you only whisper about at night, the kind that makes people look at you with pity or disbelief. But I lived it. I felt every second of it, and it started with love. Pure, intoxicating, blinding love. I fell for a man named Jordan Maddox, a 31-year-old real estate agent in Seattle, with soft eyes, a quiet laugh, and a way of looking at me like the world stopped existing. Beyond my skin, we met at a bookstore he dropped a copy of Wuthering Heights. I picked it up, and we talked about tragic love stories for an hour before exchanging numbers. He told me later that he hadn't believed in fate until that day. I believed him. For almost a year, we dated like the world was ours. We'd travel, cook together, spent long weekends, tangled up in conversation and each other. He said he was single, divorced 4 years ago, and not interested in anything casual. I believed every word because his actions never gave me a reason to question. He met my family, took me to his apartment, introduced me to his coworkers. I thought I found someone worth trusting. After years of disappointment, I thought I knew him. Until I saw the woman holding his hand at the grocery store. The same man, the same soft laugh, but with someone else, a brunette, pretty pregnant, wearing his ring, and she called him babe. While he looked her in the eyes like she was the only person that existed, my world cracked right there in aisle 7 next to the oatmeal and organic crackers, and I walked away before he ever saw me. Didn't call, didn't text. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and sobbed into a pillow until my throat burned. Then I did what any sane woman would do. I opened social media and searched every version of his name. I could think of nothing obvious, but then I remembered the full name on a real estate brochure. Jordan T. Maddox. I typed it in, and there was a wedding photo, him and her smiling under fairy lights. Caption: celebrating 3 beautiful years, baby girl coming soon. The post was only 2 weeks old. The comments were full of congratulations. I stared at the image for an hour before realizing I'd been holding my breath. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, but something else formed under my grief, anger, and not the kind you throw into a wall, the kind you bury. Feet grow. I deleted his number, blocked him, and for weeks I didn't say a word until one night I got a message request on Instagram. Hey, can we talk? It was him. I didn't answer. The next day, flowers arrived at my door with no name, then a letter in his handwriting. I never meant for this to happen. I never planned to fall in love with you. I tore the letter in half, but I kept the pieces. I wasn't done with this story. Not yet. I began doing what most people never do. I got closer. I made a second account under a fake name and followed his wife, whose name I now knew. Claire Maddox, kindergarten teacher, a gentle soul with hand-painted mugs and floral dresses. She posted daily. Her smile was genuine, her captions full of hope, and it broke something inside me that I wasn't the only one betrayed. She was too. Didn't know it yet. I watched for weeks. I learned their favorite cafe, their Sunday routine. I even saw the hospital bag she packed and posted it. Her, yes, but it also made me burn with something bigger. Not revenge exactly, truth, closure, exposure. But I wasn't going to be the woman who showed up screaming on our doorstep. I wanted to do it with control, with dignity. So I waited, I watched. And I wrote everything down, dates, photos, messages he sent before I blocked him again. It was all building towards something. One night I saw him with her at the park. I sat on a bench in sunglasses and a scarf watching from behind a newspaper like a scene from a spy film. He looked happy like nothing had happened, but then his eyes flicked up, met mine, and for just a second, just when he knew I knew, and his smile faded. That night he called me from a new number. I didn't pick up, but the voicemail, I still remember every word. I'm sorry, I'm not who I said I was, but I meant every word with you. Please just talk to me before you do something that can't be undone. The audacity. I wanted to break my phone. Instead, I wrote him a letter. I didn't send it, not yet. But I planned to. I even bought a stamp, and I started planning something I never thought I'd have the strength to do. Meet her, Claire. I didn't know how, I didn't know when. But I had to, because some part of me still believed that I had loved something real. And if I walked away now, I'd always wonder whether I could have stopped the lie from ruining 2 more lives, hers and the baby's. But even as I planned it, even as I stood in my bathroom staring at my face, repeating words of confidence, I started seeing messages on my fake account from someone I didn't know, a woman named Natalie. Message: hi, I think we've both dated Jordan, can we talk? My fingers went cold. The moment I read Natalie's message, my heart skipped, not because I feared being caught, but because I suddenly realized how not alone I was in my confusion, my heartbreak, my obsession with answers, and in that instant the tangled web Jordan had spun began to show its threads more clearly. I stared at her profile, private, no bio, no face, just initials, and seen a location tag that said Portland. It could have And fake, I told myself maybe someone trolling me, but deep down I knew. Only another woman who had been with him would reach out like that. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for minutes before I finally typed, "Yes, I think we should talk. I've been through something, and if you're who I think you are, then maybe you understand better than anyone." She replied instantly, "Call me, I'll explain everything." "You're not the first." I froze. Not the first. The next evening I sat on the edge of my bed holding the phone to my ear as Natalie's voice, soft, steady, slightly older than mine, began to unravel the lie I had lived inside for nearly a year. She had met Jordan at a corporate retreat in 2020 right before COVID shut everything down, and they dated for 11 months. He told her he was separated, showed her photos of an empty apartment, made her believe he was working on custody issues from a previous marriage. She believed him because he gave her 10 gifts. Love, all the things he'd given me, and when she started noticing inconsistencies, he said, "I'm doing this for us," just like he told me Natalie had left him after she found an ultrasound in his bag. Yes, an ultrasound with Claire's name on it, but what stunned me more was that this ultrasound was over a year ago, meaning the baby Claire was carrying now was not the first. There had been another one who had never made it, and neither did Natalie's relationship after she confronted him. He ghosted her, blocked her, erased her like she never mattered until she too started watching him from the sidelines through fake accounts, piecing together his perfect life. And now hearing my story made her voice tremble with a mix of rage and vindication, like for the first time she wasn't yelling into a void. We stayed on the phone for hours that night, trading details, dates, screenshots, timelines, turning heartbreak into a case file like detectives of our own demise, and I found myself wondering how many more there were. How many women had seen that soft smile, heard his late-night apologies, believed in his broken man act? Natalie wanted to tell Claire, I did too, but we agreed we couldn't just barge in and destroy a pregnant woman's world with words alone. We needed undeniable proof, the kind that can't be spun or denied. So we planned for days. We trailed him separately. Natalie from a distance, when he traveled for conferences, me from across the street. When he visited Claire's OB appointments, and on a rainy Thursday, we got what we needed. He left. Claire at home said he had a client meeting and drove straight to a bar downtown where he met a woman half our age. I sat in the back, hoodie pulled up, heart beating in my throat, camera rolling from my bag. He kissed her cheek, ordered wine, leaned in close, and used the same lines I'd once thought were mine. "I've never met anyone like you before." When they left together, I didn't follow. I had what I needed. I sent the video to Natalie. We made a plan. She would talk to Claire in person. I wouldn't be there. Too much risk. Claire knew my face. She didn't know Natalie's. I waited the next day, phone in hand, watching time stretch like elastic until Natalie finally texted. I told her everything. I showed her the video. She didn't cry. She just stared at the wall for 5 minutes. Then she whispered, "I think I've always known." The words hit me hard, not just because of what they said, but because I'd once felt the same, that quiet dread under the surface, the intuition we silence in favor of love. The fallout came quickly. Claire blocked him, changed locks. Her sister moved in. Jordan tried to reach out to me too. Natalie, even to Claire's job, but none of us responded. For a moment it felt like we'd won, but then Jordan showed up at my apartment. I was in the kitchen when I heard the knock, 3 soft taps, the same rhythm he used when he surprised me months ago. I didn't move. Then came his voice. "Emily? Please just open the door. Let me explain. I know what you did." My stomach dropped. What I did? I hadn't lied. He had. I stayed silent. He knocked again, then louder. Then he yelled, "You ruined everything. Do you think she forgive you? Do you think you're better than me?" I called the cops. By the time they arrived, he was gone. They took a report, warned me to be careful. I started sleeping with pepper spray by my bed, but that wasn't the worst of it. 2 nights later, I got a call from Natalie. She was crying, "Emily, I think I was wrong. I think Claire isn't just heartbroken. I think she's losing it." Apparently, Claire had started sending emails to herself, dozens written as if they were coming from Jordan, threatening, manipulative. But when Natalie traced the IP, they were all coming from Claire's home. Then came the packages. Tiny baby clothes, burned at the edges, dolls with their eyes scratched out, left on Jordan's mother's porch. It was spiraling. Claire had spent years living in a love she suspected was false, but convinced herself was real, and now that the truth was fully lit, she was burning everything with it. Natalie wanted to back off, disappear. But I couldn't, because deep down something in me still felt tethered not to Jordan but to the story. I wanted to know how far love and lies could push a woman, and so I made a mistake. I sent Claire a message, just one line. If you want someone to talk to, I've been where you are, I'm not the enemy. I didn't expect her to reply, but she did, and what she said made my blood run cold. You're the reason I have no family anymore, I'll see you soon. When I read Claire's message, you're the reason. I have no family anymore, I'll see you soon. A chill bloomed inside, my spine like frost cracking across a window pane, and I sat there in my dimly lit apartment, the words pulsing against the screen, feeling like they'd been carved instead of typed, and suddenly everything I'd been fighting for closure, healing truth, felt like it had turned on me. I had wanted to do the right thing, had wanted her to know the man she loved wasn't who he pretended to be, but now it felt like I'd kicked down the only illusion holding her world together, and what was left behind wasn't clarity, it was chaos. I didn't reply, didn't block her. Either just put my phone down and paced the living room like a woman waiting for a storm that hadn't yet broken. Over the next few days, I stayed inside more than usual, turned off location sharing, stopped using my real social profiles, just in case, but I didn't tell anyone, not even Natalie, who had started pulling away herself, afraid things were unraveling faster than either of us had planned. We thought we were helping, thought we were uncovering something righteous, but instead, we lit a match in a room soaked with gasoline. 3 days passed with silence, and then a card came to my mailbox, no return address. Just my name and handwriting I recognized from Claire's old Instagram posts, looping neat like a teacher grading a paper. Inside the card was a photo not of me but of Jordan asleep in what looked like his own bed, and beside it in blue ink, "He still dreams of you, but you won't be in mine." I dropped the card and backed away from my own hands, feeling my heart beat in my throat, and I suddenly understood something terrifying. Claire wasn't just grieving, she had crossed over into a space where pain had become obsession, and I was no longer a witness, I was a target. I called the police again, but they said unless there was a direct threat, there wasn't much they could do. I asked for a restraining order. They said I needed more proof. The next night, I started sleeping with a chair propped against the door and my bedroom light on. I kept thinking about the look in her eyes and the photos she posted, so warm, so maternal, so full of belief, and how that person was gone, replaced by someone who saw herself as betrayed, not by one person, but by an entire world that had lied to Harry. Tried to move forward, really, I did. I even went out with a coworker for drinks, laughed a little, reminded myself there was still life outside this nightmare, but when I came home that night, my living room window was cracked open and I never left it that way. Nothing was stolen, nothing broken, but I found a single strand of long brown hair on my pillow, and that's when I lost it. I called Natalie, shaking, crying, saying I couldn't do this anymore, that I should have walked away, should have just blocked him and healed in silence, but she didn't pick up. Instead, I got a text 15 minutes later. "I'm sorry I told her where you live. I didn't mean to, She shut up crying. I thought she needed someone to talk to. I didn't think she'd do this." I stared at the message, reread it twice, then sank to the floor, realizing the one person I trusted had opened the door I was trying so hard to keep shut. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a whisper. Some broken version of my own voice repeating "why?" over and over until I was too tired to cry. The next day, I left town. Just packed a bag, drove out to a friend's cabin in Oregon, someone who owed me a favor and didn't ask questions, and stayed there for a week, hoping distance would make it stop, hoping maybe Claire would calm down, forget, find something else to cling to. The first 2 days were quite peaceful, even until one morning I walked outside and found my name carved into the tree by the front porch. Just one word, shallow, fresh. Emily. I dropped my coffee and ran back inside, locking everything, but there was no one around, no cars on the gravel road. No signs of entry, just that name staring at me from the bark. I called the friend who owned the cabin, asked if anyone else knew I was there. He said no. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the armchair with a kitchen knife in my lap, watching the shadows stretch and shift, heart hammering at every creak. I didn't see her, but I felt her like her grief had grown legs and followed me across state lines. The next morning, I drove back to Seattle. I had to end this somehow. When I got home, my door was unlocked. Nothing missing, nothing touched, except for the framed photo of me and Jordan that I had hidden at the back of my closet. It was now placed neatly on my kitchen table with a note underneath it. "This was never yours." I broke down. Not from fear anymore, but exhaustion. I was tired of being hunted by someone else's heartbreak, tired of being the villain in a love story I didn't ask to be in. That day, I wrote Claire a letter, not angry, not defensive, just honest. I told her I understood how betrayal rewrites the shape of your life. I told her I had loved him too, but I had walked away when I learned the truth. I told her I had no interest in ruining her, only in surviving what he'd done to both of us. And I left the letter taped to her mailbox that night. There were no knocks, no cards, no carved names, just silence, and I thought, maybe this was the end, but it wasn't. For 3 days after I left the letter at Claire's mailbox, there was nothing, no messages, no packages, no signs she'd even seen it, and the absence of her presence felt as loud as her obsession once had, like a void where something volatile had once existed. And in that quiet space, I found myself wondering if maybe the story was finally over, if my truth had reached her heart in a way that my revenge never could. But peace, as I'd learned too many times, doesn't last without cost. On the 4th day, I received a phone call from a blocked number, and against my better judgment I answered, already bracing myself for her voice. But it wasn't Claire, it was Jordan, and the moment I heard him say Emily in that same soft, broken voice I once trusted, my blood boiled through every vein like fire, and I was seconds away from hanging up before he spoke again. She's gone. At first, I didn't understand. What do you mean gone? I asked, pacing my kitchen, panic bleeding through the cracks of my calm. He exhaled slowly, and what followed was a fragmented explanation of how Claire had disappeared 3 days ago, hadn't shown up to her doctor's appointment, left her phone behind, and had mailed him a box with nothing inside except for a single ultrasound photo. And my letter, my heart sank. I hadn't meant for any of this. I hadn't asked for a woman to unravel. I hadn't wanted to be part of someone's final unraveling. And as Jordan sobbed into the phone asking if I knew where she might go, I felt something hollow open up inside me, because no, I didn't know, but I could guess she would have gone somewhere meaningful, quiet, remote. That night I barely slept, thoughts spinning, guilt tightening around my chest like a vice, and by sunrise, I was back on the road, driving past city lines, retracing all the places she had posted about online before her world began to fall apart. A cabin she once stayed at with Jordan in the San Juan Islands, a lighthouse she called her calm space, and finally a lake 2 hours north, where she had posted a photo of the sunrise just a year ago, with the caption, "If I ever disappear, you'll find me here." I drove straight there, past evergreen trees and winding forest roads, until the lake revealed itself like a mirror cracked open by wind. I parked and stepped out, heart-pounding air crisp, cold, clean, and I walked along the gravel path until I saw it. Her car, dusty, empty, keys still in the ignition, a blanket folded neatly in the passenger seat. I looked around, no sign of her. I shouted her name, nothing. My phone had no service. I kept walking, calling, scanning every tree and ripple of water, until at last, on a bench at the far edge of the lake, I saw her sitting still, staring out like a statue carved from grief. I approached cautiously. "Claire?" She didn't turn. "Claire, please, just talk to me." Her voice came like a breeze. "He said we were forever. Did he say that to you too?" I swallowed hard. "He said a lot of things." Her hands trembled. "Do you think I'm crazy?" I sat beside her slowly. "No. I think you're hurt like me and angry like me." She looked at me, finally, eyes puffy but clear, the fury drained out. "I hated you, I really did." I nodded. "I know. But we were both lied to. That's not your fault or mine." She was silent for a long time before whispering. I almost ended it. "I stood on the dock last night, thought about walking in, but I couldn't." Her voice cracked. "Because of her, my daughter. And for the first time in months, I saw not a villain, not a threat, but a woman drowning in someone else's lies, gasping for air. She was never taught how to breathe." I stayed with her until sunset. We didn't say much after that, just sat breathing, existing. I offered to drive her home. She nodded. That night she stayed at my place, 2 women once pitted against each other by a man who couldn't tell the truth. Now bound by survival, in the morning she quietly left a note that said, "Thank you for seeing me as more than the mess he made me into." I never saw her again, but I knew she was alive, and I hoped healing. Jordan, on the other hand, kept trying to reach me. Apologies, voicemail, confessions, even a letter that sounded more like a resume of excuses than true remorse. I never replied. Instead, I forwarded it to his mother with a simple note. "Your son broke more than just hearts. He left cracks in people that may never heal." I don't know what she did with that. I never cared to follow up in time. Natalie and I lost contact too, not out of anger, just distance. We had served our purpose in each other's lives. We were survivors of the same storm, now sailing different seas. Months passed, then a year. I changed apartments, cut my hair, changed my number. I started dating again, carefully, slowly, with boundaries. And one night I stood in front of a mirror and said out loud, "You're not broken because of what he did. You're stronger because you walked through it." I believed it, and still on some nights I dream of that grocery store, The one where I saw him with her, that moment where the lie cracked open like thunder and I was reborn in pain, but in those dreams, I don't walk away. I look him dead in the eyes and say, she know and I'll be the reason. Maybe that's what closure looks like, not forgetting, not forgiving, just finally understanding that. You were never crazy, you were right, and that's enough. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. Thanks for watching. If this story touched you, made you feel seen, or reminded you of your own strength, like, share, and subscribe too. Support more stories like this, because every woman has a story the world needs to hear. Which moment hit you the hardest? Comment below. Your truth deserves to be heard.